Late autumn wrapped Boston in a heavy gray cloak. Rain had been falling steadily all day, each drop tapping the cobbled sidewalks with weighty rhythm, reflecting the faint yellow glow of shuttered storefronts. At the 11 p.m. bus stop, silence reigned, broken only by the wind slipping through the gaps in the metal shelter. Elena Cruz stood there, hunched in her faded coat. Her damp hair clung to her cheeks, her once white sneakers soaked through and streaked with dirt. In one hand she held a half-eaten dinner in a plastic container, her third untouched meal this week. She had just finished a grueling 14-hour shift at the hospital's diagnostics lab. It wasn't passion that kept her going, it was necessity. For the past 9 years, Elena had lived like a ghost. Up before sunrise, home long after dark, her world revolved around lab results, overdue bills, and her daughter. With no parents to lean on and few friends left, she had abandoned her dream of becoming a research scientist to raise her child alone. That child, Lena, now in 4th grade, was bright beyond her years and loved the stars. But Elena had never had the energy to read her bedtime stories or simply sit beside her without nodding off from sheer exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. A message from the kind older woman next door. Lena ate well and went to sleep. She did another space math puzzle. Soup's in your fridge. You're an amazing mom. Elena smiled faintly, but her eyes welled up. Those words comforted her, yet they also pierced, because she knew that even when she was present, she was never fully there. The delayed bus groaned into the station, doors opening with a hiss. Elena climbed aboard and took a seat near the back, where no one else wanted to sit. The fluorescent light cast a pale glow on her tired skin. She leaned against the cold window, sleep descending like a snowstorm. Her head slowly tilted sideways until it came to rest on the shoulder of the man beside her. A solid, warm shoulder, a soft scent of cedar wood rose in the air, oddly familiar. Elena had no idea that this single moment would change everything. But right then, she was just a worn-out woman unconsciously seeking a place to rest, just once. Elena jolted awake when the bus lurched to a stop at a busy intersection. Headlights flooded the interior, making her squint. She straightened quickly and turned to apologize to the man she had been leaning on, but when their eyes met, the words caught in her throat. The man, with piercing steel blue eyes, a defined jawline, and a gaze both warm and haunted, was none other than Nathan Hart, her first love. Her chest tightened. For years, she had told herself she'd moved on, that he was just a short chapter in the long story of her life. But the truth was, she'd never stopped wondering why he left without a single word. Nathan? Her voice came out hoarse, trembling. Elena? Is that you? He answered gently, as if too loud a voice might shatter her. Time froze in that instant. Elena shot up from her seat, heart hammering in her chest. She wasn't ready for this storm. Not here. Not when she was too exhausted to defend herself. She rang the stop button and stumbled off at the next station, even though it wasn't her stop. Nathan followed, calling her name. His voice wasn't the same youthful tone she remembered. It was deeper, steadier, and carried an urgency that nearly broke her. Elena, please, I didn't know. I didn't know you were still in Boston. What did you know, Nathan? She turned sharply, eyes glossy with unshed tears. You disappeared for 10 years. No calls, no answers. I had to give birth alone. You don't get to show up now and turn everything upside down. Nathan stood frozen. In the dim streetlight, his face was etched with pain and regret. He raised a hand as if to reach for her, then let it fall, helpless. He couldn't say anything. Not yet. Not now. Elena turned and walked briskly down the dark street, but inside her heart was screaming. It was him. He was back. Everything she had buried was now rising, clearer and louder than ever before. As Elena walked home, her steps felt as heavy as the cold winter sky. Under the flickering streetlights, her mind drifted backward. Back to a time when life had been glowing with hope and color. She was 19 then, a sophomore biology major at Brown University. She didn't come from money or prestige, just raw passion for the microscopic world. That's when she first met Nathan Hart in applied mathematics. He stood out, sharp eyes, calm demeanor. She sat behind him the entire semester, sneaking glances whenever he raised his hand to answer. Everything changed when they were paired for a group project. Study sessions turned into long conversations. Nathan wasn't just brilliant. He was kind, thoughtful. He shared dreams of building technology to bring people closer. She spoke of DNA strands that kept her up at night. They came from different worlds. His family owned tech empires. Hers had been raised by a single mother, a nurse who passed too soon. But somehow, in that small academic bubble, they fit. That autumn, they fell in love, quietly, no grand declarations, just late-night walks past the library, fingers intertwined in the lab, and talks about a future defined not by status, but by purpose. Then came winter break during their final year, and Nathan vanished. No calls, no goodbye. Elena panicked. She texted, emailed, even went to his house, but the gatekeeper told her Nathan had moved out. Just like that, he was gone, as if he'd never existed. 3 weeks later, Elena discovered she was pregnant. She sat in a campus bathroom, shaking as she stared at the test in her hands, mind numb. There was no one to call, no man to lean on. She withdrew from school, gave up her scholarship, and began her journey as a mother, alone, uncertain, and unprepared. And now, he was back. By accident. At her weakest moment. As if fate had circled back to ask, "What will you do this time?" Back in his upscale apartment in downtown Boston, Nathan no longer felt the calm that space once brought. The soft lighting, the designer furniture, the jazz humming from the smart speakers, all of it felt hollow now. He sat frozen on the couch, hands still trembling from the encounter. Every word Elena said sliced silently through memory. He had told himself he left because he had no choice, because of his father's threats. But now he saw the deeper cruelty. He had abandoned a girl who was carrying a life he never knew about. For years, Nathan built a tech empire, filling his days with pitches, profits, and power. Yet something had always been missing. He thought it was closure, thought it was the one that got away. But when he looked into Elena's weary, proud eyes on that bus, he realized it was none of that. The emptiness inside him had a shape, and that shape looked an awful lot like a family he had turned his back on. Now, his urgency wasn't about saying sorry. He needed to see the life he missed, to understand the woman Elena had become, and, if fate would allow it, to meet the child she had brought into this world and raised alone for nearly a decade. For many nights after the fateful bus encounter, Nathan couldn't sleep. Elena's tearful eyes and her words, "I had to give birth alone," played in his mind on repeat like a broken record. He began searching, not with tech or money like a CEO, but with the remorse of a man who realized he'd walked away from the most precious part of his life. He found Elena's address through the hospital's diagnostics department, but instead of knocking on her door, he chose to observe from afar. He saw her leave early each morning, old backpack slung over one shoulder, clutching a cheap coffee cup. He saw her pause to hug a little girl in a green coat with a high ponytail, planting a kiss on her forehead before rushing off. They didn't know he stood across the street, his heart pounding in his chest. 3 days later, Nathan followed the trail to Lena's elementary school. It was science fair day. The air buzzed with excitement, robot models, foam solar systems, colorful charts. In the center of the room, Lena stood beside her project, a motorized solar system powered by a solar panel, designed with impressive precision. Nathan walked closer, saying nothing. Lena noticed him and gave a polite smile. "Do you like astronomy too?" her voice chirped, eyes bright. He nodded, struggling to speak. "I used to, but I was never as good as you." She giggled. "I want to be a space engineer, like in the movies. Mom says I can be anything." Just that one sentence broke him. Pride, sorrow, and guilt all crashing into one. He looked at her, Elena's nose, his clear gray eyes. No DNA test was needed. He knew. This was his daughter. When Elena entered the room and saw him at Lena's booth, she froze. Their eyes met. She didn't ask what he was doing, she already knew. Nathan quietly stepped back, not wanting to ruin Lena's day. That evening, he wrote a letter and left it in Elena's mailbox. He didn't apologize, because words weren't enough. He simply listed what he had missed: her first day of school, her first lost tooth, the nights she ran a fever. He ended with one sentence: "Even if you're not ready to forgive, I'll be here, not to reclaim the past, but to never lose the future again." A week after the science fair, just as dusk settled over Boston and the wind swept in from the bay, there was a soft knock at the old wooden door. Elena opened it, and her breath caught when she saw Nathan standing there with a paper bag in his arms. No flowers, no apologies, no rehearsed lines, just eyes, like deep water, holding something she couldn't yet name. "I brought a few books for Lena," he said gently, "and, if it's okay, I'd like to see her." Elena paused for a beat, then silently stepped aside. The apartment still smelled faintly of peppermint oil, Lena's favorite, and the lavender soap they both used. In the living room, Lena lay sprawled on the floor, carefully reattaching fallen glow-in-the-dark stars to the ceiling. She looked up at the sound of footsteps. Her gray eyes lit up. "You came back," she beamed. Nathan smiled, pulling out a few books. "I thought you might like these. There's even a star chart included." Elena stood by the doorway, silently observing. She couldn't tear her eyes away. Watching them was like witnessing something both familiar and completely new. There was something in Lena's voice, the way she looked at him, a silent trust, as if her little heart already knew a truth she'd never been told. After dinner, with Lena tucked in and soft music playing in her room, Elena and Nathan sat in the tiny kitchen. "She really likes you," Elena said, not meeting his eyes. "And that terrifies me." "Why?" Nathan asked quietly. "Because she might love you with everything she has, and if you leave again, she won't recover." Nathan clenched his hand on the table. "I made the wrong choice once, Elena. This time, I don't want forgiveness. I want to earn her trust day by day, story by story, star by star. For as long as you'll let me stay, if you'll let me, I'll never leave again." Elena didn't reply, but in that silence, something softened. A door cracked open, just wide enough for a little light to shine through. The next morning, as Lena finished her breakfast, Elena sat beside her. "Sweetheart, there's something I need to tell you." Lena looked at her for a long moment. Then she turned to Nathan, who stood at the kitchen door, clutching a book like it might anchor him in place. "You don't have to," Lena said quietly. "I already know." Elena blinked. "You do?" "He's my dad," Lena said, locking eyes with Nathan. "I knew at the science fair. His eyes, they're like mine. And the way he stood still, like he was scared to break me, I just felt it." Nathan stepped forward, his knees nearly giving out as Lena threw her arms around him. He held her close, like he'd never let go again. His cheeks were soaked with tears. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I've missed too much. But if you let me, I won't miss another second." Lena looked up, her tiny hand touching his cheek. "I've been waiting for you since I first learned what Dad meant, and dreamed that one day mine would find me too." In that moment, there was no anger, no blame, just a truth finally held tight, with all the love two hearts had been saving for each other. Just weeks after Elena and Lena began adjusting to Nathan's presence in their daily life, an envelope from the courthouse shattered their fragile peace. The petitioner, Vanessa Alden, Nathan's ex-wife. Contents: a motion to obtain custody of Lena, citing the child's right to a stable and appropriate environment. Vanessa accused Elena of being an overworked, underpaid single mother living in subpar conditions, and insisted that Nathan, as a public figure, had a duty to protect his reputation from potential family entanglements. "She's insane," Elena hissed, crumpling the paper in her trembling hands. "She's not even Lena's mother." "Vanessa treats everything like political leverage," Nathan replied, voice steel cold. She doesn't care about Lena, she just can't stand the thought of me having something real, something she never could give. Elena looked over at Lena, giggling on the floor with her stuffed cat. A wave of icy dread swept over her. No one had the right to take her child away. Nathan hired one of the top family lawyers in Boston, but Elena knew that justice didn't always favor the underdog. Hearings began. Vanessa arrived in muted power suits, armed with evidence. Elena's student loan debts, postpartum depression records, and their cramped apartment as proof of an unfit environment. But what Elena didn't expect was the power of community. Neighbors, the elderly babysitter, the local bookstore owner, Lena's fourth-grade teacher, each stepped forward, submitting letters and testifying in court. They painted a picture of Elena as a hardworking, devoted mother who never once let life's hardship stop her from loving her daughter fully. The turning point came when Lena asked to speak. She stood at the witness stand, hands trembling, voice clear. I don't want to leave my mom. She's the only one who knows I like stars. She wakes up at 4 a.m. to make my lunch. She kisses me goodnight, even when I'm already asleep. And Mr. Nathan is the only one who ever called me Dad's little wonder. I don't need a big house. I just need people who really love me. Silence swept the courtroom. Vanessa had nothing to say. Nathan broke down in tears. The judge brought down the gavel. There is no justification for removing custody from Elena Cruz, and if Mr. Nathan Hart wishes to participate in parenting, this court encourages cooperative custody in the best interest of the child. Elena clutched Lena's hand. They hadn't won because of strategy. They'd won because of love, a love that needed no defense, only the chance to be seen. After the trial, everything seemed to slow down. No more tense hearings, no more gavel strikes making hearts clench. Elena's tiny apartment remained the same, simple, tidy. But now it echoed with more laughter, and a new pair of men's shoes sat neatly by the door. Nathan didn't rush. He didn't try to replace anything, he just showed up. Each morning, he brewed coffee while Elena pulled on her white coat. He drove Lena to school. At night, he sat beside her, answering questions like, "Why do stars shine?" Or, "Were you scared you'd never find me?" One evening, Lena touched a faint scar on Nathan's wrist. "When did you get this?" Nathan smiled gently. "Back when I thought work was the most important thing. Now I know some things matter more." One day, while cleaning out a storage room in the grand house he once shared with his father, Nathan found an old mailbox bin. Inside were dozens of Elena's letters. Letters she had written in desperation all those years ago. None had ever reached him. One envelope was torn at the edge, handwriting shaky. "I've written this letter in my head 1,000 times, but this time it's real. I carry a part of you, Nathan, and even if you're gone, I hope one thing. Don't forget I was once your home." Nathan stood frozen. It felt like his soul had been peeled open. He brought the box to Elena, set it on her table. When she opened it, her eyes brimmed with tears. "I never left because I wanted to," Nathan said quietly. "My father intercepted everything. He erased you like you never existed." Elena didn't respond right away, but for the first time she placed her hand gently over his. No more armor, no more suspicion. Just two people who had weathered storms and could finally see each other clearly. Weeks later, they visited an observatory in Vermont, a promise Nathan had made to Lena if things turned out okay. Standing beside the massive telescope, Lena whispered, "Mom, I see Orion." Elena smiled, but Nathan leaned down and whispered back, "I see something too. I see our family." They returned to Boston, hand in hand. Nathan resigned from his family company, turning leadership over to a board and starting to write a book, a memoir for Lena, titled The Sky Where You Are. That night, after Lena fell asleep, Elena stepped onto the balcony where Nathan was waiting. "There's something I haven't told you," she said softly. "I'm pregnant." Nathan turned, his eyes glowing in the dark. He didn't speak, just pulled her close and held her like he'd never let go again. For the first time in nearly a decade, Elena's heart didn't have to fight to survive. She could breathe, be loved, be whole with the man she thought she'd lost forever. 3 years after the courtroom battle that changed their lives, a warm summer afternoon bathed a small wooden house on the outskirts of Cambridge in golden light. Birds chirped in the trees behind the home, sunlight streaked across the kitchen floor. In the cozy kitchen, Elena stirred chamomile tea as the scent of fresh cookies filled the air. From the living room came bursts of laughter. Lena, now 12, played Space Rescue Mission with her 2 younger siblings, the twins Micah and Isla, just 2 years old. Nathan sat in the middle of the chaos, joy radiating from his face as if the lost years had never existed. "You just saved me from a meteor strike," Lena shouted, tugging a toy astronaut helmet onto Nathan's head. "I think she was mission commander in a past life," Elena called from the kitchen doorway. "No doubt," Nathan laughed, pulling all 3 children into a warm embrace. When the kids went down for their afternoon nap, Elena and Nathan stepped out to the back porch. The breeze rustled through the trees, and the old swing creaked gently. "I still can't believe I get to have this," Nathan said, gazing out at the golden field. "A family, a home, something no one can take from us." Elena rested her hand on his. "It was never taken. We were just too hurt to hold on to it." Later, Lena came outside holding Nathan's book, The Sky Where You Are. She set it on the table, flipped open the first page, and began reading aloud. "To Lena, my little wonder, if you're reading this, I hope you know love is never late. It only needs a chance to be seen and a heart brave enough to believe in it again." Her voice trembled. Elena turned away, wiping a tear. Nathan crossed the porch, knelt beside Lena, and whispered, "You're the reason I wanted to start over. I can't fix the past, but I swear I'll be here for every moment left." Lena nodded, squeezing his hand. "You know, Dad, maybe falling stars don't bring new wishes. Maybe they remind us that old ones can still come true." As the evening settled in, the family walked out into the field behind the house. Micah and Isla chased butterflies. Elena and Nathan held hands, strolling slowly through the soft gold of twilight. "I used to think I didn't deserve to have you again," Nathan said. "But you forgave me. Not because I deserved it, but because you were strong enough to believe in love." Elena stopped and looked into his eyes. "No, Nathan, I forgave you because you came back, because you stayed, even when I pushed you away, because you did what only a real father can do. You waited for her to open her heart." They stood beneath the large oak tree where Nathan had once carved the words, "Where love was lost, we found home." The sky darkened. The first stars appeared. "Lena," Nathan asked, "do you have a wish?" She looked up, then back at her parents. "I don't need one," she said with a soft smile, "because what I want most, I'm already living it."